The first rays of dawn spilled across the sandstone cliffs, igniting the canyon walls in firelit hues. Wind carried the distant cry of a hawk and the whisper of desert air slipping through crevices. Below, hidden in a recess of rock, lay a village of stone and adobe rooms, stacked like honeycombs high above the canyon floor. The silence seemed impossible. Not a single footstep, not a single breath, only the echo of lives once lived. In the year AD 1200, these alcoves teemed with the ancient Puebloans, known today as the Anasazi. They had carved their homes into the cliff face with astonishing precision, hauling timber and mortar up sheer sandstone walls. Corn and beans flourished in narrow strips of irrigated soil along the canyon bottom, coaxed into being by channels cut directly into living rock. Pottery spun on stone metates bore swirling black and white designs, and baskets woven from willow and sumac stalks showed a mastery of strength and pattern that rivaled any ancient artisan's work. Life for the Anasazi was as precarious as it was brilliant. Beneath the hard sun, men tended fields with bone hoes, while women ground maize into flour and crafted vessels for water. Children watched the sky, learning to read solstices by the shafts of light striking petroglyphs. In subterranean kivas, circular rooms sunk into plaza floors, they gathered in silence, their footsteps muffled by earth, to perform rituals that called a rain, honor their ancestors, and bound them to the rhythms of the cosmos. By AD 1150, Cliff Palace at Mesa Verde was a crown jewel of this society. Over 150 rooms clung to the cliff's lip, connected by ladders and narrow passageways. Scholars still puzzle over how a community hauled timbers, some weighing nearly 100 pounds, up the rock face without modern machinery. Within those rooms lay living quarters, storerooms, and ceremonial chambers, each painted and plastered, each bearing the mark of a people utterly devoted to place. Then the omens began. Tree ring records reveal a mega drought stretching over 2 decades. Summer rains failed us. Winter snows melted before they could feed the springs. Fields cracked and wilted. Corn stalks curled brown at the tips. As water disappeared, so did the certainty of tomorrow. Some villages closed their doors with stone walls and watchtowers, a testament to rising tensions over every drop of life-giving water. Streams dried to trickles. Families packed their pots, some half-baked, and carried what they could along dusty trails. The grand cliff palaces emptied almost overnight. Fires that should have glowed with evening hearthlight lay cold. Pot shells lay scattered amid sweeping silence. In one dark kiva, fire pit stones stood undisturbed, as if the people had simply stepped away and never returned. Yet the story did not end in abandonment. Among the modern Pueblo nations, Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, oral traditions speak not collapse, but of a sacred migration. Visionaries dreamed of new lands where water flowed more generously and where the ancestors waited. Guided by stars and ancestral memory, whole villages rose at dawn, packed their belongings, and set out for mesas beyond the horizon. Archaeologists piecing together this exodus find clues in burn layers and carved symbols. Petroglyphs of sinuous serpents and Kachina dancers overwrite older images, as though new prayers were etched over fading fortunes. A child's burial in a cramped alcove, clutching turquoise beads and shell ornaments, hints at a desperate hope for protection. Carbon dates line up with the worst years of drought. Defensive walls suggest conflict over scant resources. And yet, none of these speak to the full truth, that the Anasazi became the Pueblo peoples of today, carrying forward their art, their astronomy, and their unbreakable bond with the land. In the high mesas of Arizona, Hopi elders still perform the rain dances their ancestors first did centuries ago. At sunrise, drumming echoes across canyon rims. Voices rise and chant, calling the sacred clouds to burst with renewal. Each step remembers a journey. Each drumbeat honors survival against relentless odds. To stand in the quiet of those cliff dwellings is to feel the pulse of human endurance. A place alive one season, silent the next, yet never truly lost. The stones hold the laughter of children, the prayers of farmers, the solemn hush of rituals beneath star-bright skies. And in that hush, you sense that disappearance is often transformation. As the sun sets, dyeing the canyon walls in molten gold, you realize this is not a final goodbye, but a testament to reinvention. The Anasazi vanished from these cliffs, but they live on in every petroglyph, in every drumbeat, and in the living traditions of their descendants. Their cliff palaces stand not as tombs of a lost people, but as monuments to adaptation, vision, and hope. Soon, we will journey deeper into jungles of Central America, where another great empire rose and fell with startling suddenness. There, pyramids pierce the canopy, and silent plazas await the secrets of vanished kings. The story of the Maya collapse will test everything you think you know about power, decline, and the forces that shape civilizations. The air in the jungle press against your skin like warm velvet, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Dawn's light filtered through towering saber trunks and the fan-shaped leaves of the wild Ramon tree, carving emerald shafts into the undergrowth. Somewhere ahead, hidden beneath the cathedral canopy of vines and orchids, lay the heart of a vanished world, the ancient city of Tikal. You step onto a moss-slick causeway of worn limestone blocks, each one inscribed with the centuries-old footprints of priests, warriors, and kings. The stone underfoot hums with echoes of ritual chants and the steady beat of tribal drums. Here, where jaguars once prowled the plaza at twilight and toucans darted between columns of ceiba, the Maya built their empire, one of the most remarkable civilizations ever to rise in the Americas, and then watch it collapse in a single dark century. At its zenith between 600 and 850 AD, the Maya world stretched from the highlands of Guatemala through the Yucatan Peninsula into Belize and western Honduras. Hundreds of cities formed a network of polities. Tikal sparred with Calakmul. Copan traded secrets of astronomy with Palenque. Uxmal and Chichen Itza blossomed in the north. They carved stele of hard limestone, erected temples towering above the treetops, and mapped the heavens with unmatched precision. You pause at the base of Temple I, called the Temple of the Great Jaguar, its 3 steep stairways disappearing into shadow. Perched at the summit once stood the tomb of Jasaw Chan Kawilai, Tikal's most powerful ruler, who reigned in the late 7th century. From here, he commanded armies, enacted grand ceremonies, and ordered the carving of glyphs that would chronicle his exploits for eternity. Below, the great plaza spread out, framed on 3 sides by pyramids and palaces, like a sacred amphitheater awaiting an otherworldly performance. Inside these walls, priests consulted codices made of bark paper to foretell eclipses. Mathematicians calculated the coming of Venus with a precision that would rival any modern observatory. Scribes etched glyphs on a limestone stele and bark-fold books in a script so complex it combined phonetics, ideograms, and mystic symbolism. In the silence of the kivas, circular, subterranean chambers, the flicker of torchlight revealed murals of feathered serpents and masked ancestors slipping between worlds. Yet for all their brilliance, the Maya were not a unified empire under a single emperor. They were a tapestry of competing city-states, each ruled by a divine king called a Kahula Jaw. Alliances formed and shattered like chicle pot shards. Warfare erupted over maize fields, trade routes, and sacrificial captives. On hieroglyphic panels, you can still trace account of battle. Arrows raining like swarms of hornets, blood-soaked captives paraded through plazas beneath the jeering gaze of stone gods. Farmers in maize fields bent beneath the midday sun, their corn-laden necklaces clinking like distant bells. Women ground nixtamal on metates, the rhythmic scrape echoing in the courtyards. Artisans molded polychrome pottery into vessels depicting war god faces and harvest scenes. Meanwhile, courtiers draped in jade and quetzal feathers strode through teakwood palaces with their faces powdered white, chanting praises to Itzamna, the sky god, and Nine-Chel, the lunar goddess. Every facet of life, birth, marriage, war, harvest, was woven into an unbreakable cosmic order. And then, As suddenly as the afternoon storms had battered the tropical lowlands, the splendor began to unravel. By the late 8th century, the Maya world creaked under pressures both human and natural. Triggering data from the Petén Basin tell of unpredictable rainfall, years of heavy downpours followed by crippling drought. Lakes shrank to puddles, reservoirs turned into mudflats. Inscriptions, once relentless in their chronology of triumphs, fell silent. Kings stopped erecting stelae. Temples ceased to rise above the tree-line. Archaeologists first noticed the signs in the 1960s, when satellite images revealed the outlines of highways, Sakbiab, stretching between now-hidden cities. On the ground, excavators uncovered a sudden break in ceramic styles and settlement patterns around 850 AD. Brick by brick, they realized the Maya didn't fade away over centuries. They collapsed within a span of decades. In Copan, in present-day Honduras, Balcourt 10 lay deserted, its red stucco walls worn by lichen. The heroes of myths, once carved into Balcourt's doorposts, stood rubbed so smooth that only the faintest impressions of their warrior masks remained. At Palenque, the tomb of Pacal the Great had long been sealed, yet atop his temple, the inscriptions describing his miraculous birth and divine descent ended abruptly in 799 AD. In the north, Uxmal's pyramid still soared, but houses at their feet were left unfinished, foundations exposed to the sky. Scholars debate the root causes. One camp invokes environmental collapse. They point to pollen samples from lake sediments, showing a precipitous drop in maize cultivation, followed by a surge of weeds and disease-bearing plants. They chart deforestation. Masses of ceiba and mahogany fell for firewood and construction, leaving soil exposed to torrential rains that washed it away. The intricate water management systems, reservoirs, canals, cisterns that once fed entire cities could not withstand the ecological toll. Another school of thought emphasizes internecine warfare and social upheaval. As resources dwindled, the veneer of divine kingship cracked. Nobles built fortifications around city centers. Stelae depict bound captives, their heads shaved in shame, marched beneath victory's standards. In a desperate bid to restore cosmic balance, rulers intensified bloodletting rituals and mass sacrifices, hoping to appease the rain gods. Yet instead of salvation, they stoked the flames of rebellion. Commoners fled to hilltops, where they carved new shelters in rocky caves, forsaking the grand plazas below. A third theory explores the role of shifting political alliances. The collapse of major dynasties at Tikal and Calakmul upended centuries-old trade networks. Jade and obsidian no longer flowed in the same volumes. Ceremonial feasts dried up. Without the support of overlords, minor sites imploded into self-sufficient fiefdoms. Some of these splinter communities survived into the post-classic period. Chichen Itza and Mayapan, but they lacked the artistic and scientific achievements of their predecessors. Biology, too, may have waged a quiet war. Lake cholera? Bilharzia? Some researchers hypothesize that epidemics, smallpox or measles introduced by early European contact, could have swept southward along trade routes long before conquistadors arrived. Skeletal remains show signs of malnutrition and bone lesions. Mass graves containing the scant grave goods of hurried burials hint at panic and desperation. Whatever the precise blend, the result was an unstoppable cascade. Cities emptied, forests reclaimed pyramids, vines strangled columns. Wildlife returned. Tapirs roamed plazas. Scarlet macaws nested in ball courts. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they found half-hidden ruins emerging from a mist, ceremonial chambers silent for centuries. Yet this was no total disappearance. Millions of Maya persisted, retreating into hills and forests, preserving languages, costumes, and calendars. They scattered across the Yucatan, Highland, and Petén, their descendants still numbering in the millions today. In remote villages, elders recount oral histories of great cities swallowed by jungle. They dance the rain-invoking ceremonies, paint jaguar motifs on pottery, and speak of its Samna's prophecies that guided forebears to secret refuges. In the villages of the Guatemalan highlands, you witness the weaving of huipiles, hand-loomed hupils, where patterns echo the glyphs painted on ancient walls. In the Tzeltal-speaking communities of Chiapas, midwives whisper invocation chants that predate contact with the Spaniards. And in the Yucatan, they still consult daykeepers, traditional AJ, to interpret the sacred 260-day calendar, the Tzolk'in, believing it holds a key to understanding one's path through life. Standing before the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque, you imagine the humming steel glyphs as living words, guiding a people through cosmic cycles of birth and death. You feel the same electricity that must have surged through a crowd gathered in the plaza of the Seven Temples, awaiting the eclipse of the sun or the arrival of Venus as a messenger of war and renewal. The Maya collapse remains one of history's great mysteries precisely because it evokes our own vulnerabilities. It shows how a civilization can master the sky yet stumble on the ground. It warns how complexity can become fragility and how human ambition, when untempered by ecological caution, can hollow out the foundations of society. And yet, the Maya story is not one of total ruin. It is a testament to resilience. Long after the last king's glyph was carved, the beating heart of Maya culture endured. Farmers continued planting maize in forests of Ceiba. Artisans carved jade in hidden valleys. Priests studied the stars in mountain clearings. The pulse of the Tzolk'in calendar never ceased. As sunset melts into the horizon, the limestone walls of Copen's hieroglyphic stairway glow in fading light. One by one, the outlines of each glyph soften, as if inviting you to complete the story. The Maya vanished from grand plazas and towering pyramids, but they never truly disappeared. Their descendants live on, carrying the memory of temple rites, the geometry of their ball courts, the poetry of their codices in whispered prayer.